Hello, hello, Saggy Joey here. So I have a little bit more of like a kind of like a serious commentary that I wanted to do. It's more about the California wildfires that's occurring right now, and it's very very sad what's happening. I think I think the biggest heartbreak that I hear is a lot of homeowners either getting their fire insurance canceled or not being able to access it in terms of home insurance because now they'll have no home to go to and no resources to build back their home. And I think it's like a lot of people say, oh, you should get insurance. And then some people will make excuses for these insurance companies, basically saying, they don't have the economic power to like always approve the claims, especially in the wildfires like this. But in my personal opinion, if you can't afford this as a company, then there's something very wrong with the way your company is built because this is literally what people have been paying for, and to have it canceled on them, it's awful because that's what you're here for, right? Like you're forced to have home insurance for these kinds of things, and now they're probably gonna rework the policies that any new home owner or new home buyer is not gonna have fire insurance, and it's gonna be awful because if you watch this video, you can see that everything's just gonna get worse.
Battle wildfires across the state. The weather could make wildfire season last even longer this year. The National Weather Service says.
This is a video from 4 years ago, and it's basically why La Nina could make wildfire season worse, and it's going to be pertaining to a couple places. There's a couple other videos that I wanted to play, and then we'll just go over it after.
A La Nina weather pattern has developed this fall. ABC 10 News reporter Jared Aarons taking a deeper look into what a La Nina is and why it could make our already record-breaking wildfire season even worse.
By definition, a La Nina happens when water along the equator is colder than usual. The National Weather Service says that's the case right now by as much as 3 degrees Celsius, and it could keep San Diego warm and dry for the next few months.
We tend to be drier than normal.
Dan Cayenne with the Scripps Institution of Oceanography says La Nina weather patterns typically mean less rain in the fall and winter by as much as 30%.
This is not a real welcome signal for us here in Southern California.
All that cold water changes the jet stream. That's what brings storms to Southern California. This graphic from the National Weather Service shows La Nina pushes the jet stream farther north, bringing rain to the Pacific Northwest and leaving Southern California relatively dry.
And the key is
National Weather Service meteorologist Alex Tardy says that change creates more instability, making our weather patterns more extreme.
And what that means for everyone is that our winters can be variable, meaning they can be all or nothing, extreme dry periods, and even occasionally extreme wet periods during a La Nina.
The numbers bear that out. San Diego averages 10.34 inches of rain per year. The last La Nina in 2018 had just 3.34 inches, but 2017, also a La Nina, got 12.73. La Nina seasons in 2016 and 2012 were also below average. If 2020's La Nina stays dry, Tardy says fire season could extend well into winter.
We're looking at fuel moisture that is not just dry the way it should be, but it's record dry. We literally had no what we call monsoon season in our mountains and deserts.
2020 has already been a record year for wildfires, with nearly 8,000 fires and 3.6 million acres burned. La Nina extending the season for another 3 months is troublesome news.
There will be other times where you're going to have to run your AC and things will be uncomfortably warm in the fall. And in addition to that, the Santa Ana winds will be coming as expected, maybe a little bit more than they usually are.
In addition to their effects on Southern California, La Ninas also bring more hurricanes to the Atlantic Ocean. Scientists say that's why we've seen a string of them over the last few weeks. Jared Aarons, ABC 10 News.
So it's gonna be kind of hard to explain El Nino La Nina. But basically, El Nino and La Nina are a couple of weather phenomena that occur. From what I remember studying it, it was every 10 years, something like that. But it's increased in frequency ever since the climate change. So when it comes to like climate change, these are the kind of things that sort of happen, as opposed to like, oh my gosh, the Earth is substantially warmer than it was like 10 years ago. This is more of like a direct impact. So La Nina, so El Nino is sort of like a phenomena where you get like the reverse of a lot of weather patterns. Like it's a very very, I wouldn't say it's a very good way to explain it. I would rather have an expert explain that. But when it's El Nino, we call it like very rainy in the where I come from, like a tropical country. Things just get a lot rainier. Typhoons tend to be stronger, but then some other places will be a lot drier. And then La Nina is sort of like the opposite. It's sort of like trying to achieve equilibrium in a kind of way. So, if I don't know if you heard, but in La Nina, one of the best graphics was the lower percent, like lower, not percentage, but the lower precipitation, and because of that, that makes the forests a lot drier. And if you heard them as well, there's a lot stronger winds. So winds, if they're strong enough, they can put out a fire. But typically with a wildfire, all that does is feed more oxygen into the fire, and it gives them a direction too. Like you can like I would say that wildfires can be kind of contained, but in a certain way, because I think naturally a lot of places where, at least historically, they wouldn't really spread the way they have right now. But with winds, with the strong ass winds, it's just gonna feed into the fire because the fires are just so strong. They're not gonna be put out by the breeze. If anything, it's just feeding more oxygen. I'm not a physicist, but that's what I understand. And on a nature level, because everything is so dry, it causes like the bark to dry up. It reduces the moisture content that's in grass, for example. Grass when they're brown, very very flammable. I think there was a couple that started the wildfire in 2020 during gender reveal party. So that's sort of like one video that I wanted to go over. And this is back in 2020, and it was an El Nino year. I think 2023 was an El Nino year, so it's a La Nina year now, and it's awful. So this is from 3 years ago. Once it starts playing, then it's gonna.
Well, these anticipated weather systems could certainly calm wildfire concerns and possibly affect next year as well. ABC 7 News reporter Melanie Woodrow has that story.
In California, there's no such thing as fire season.
Fire is a year-round problem.
Largely driven by the weather, according to Dwight Good, CAL FIRE Santa Clara Assistant Chief.
Weather matters to firefighting like weather matters to a farmer.
We could see some relief soon. There's rain in the forecast.
Once we get closer to the event, we'll really be able to nail down where this rainfall will happen and how much will occur. Right now, there's just a potential for a pretty healthy rainstorm.
But ABC 7 meteorologist Mike Nico says we don't want too much of a good thing.
If too much rain falls on those burn scars, then we could have the potential for flooding.
Nico says more likely than not, we'll be looking at another dry winter.
La Nina is about 75% of the time come back to back. So if you just take last year and extrapolate it or move it forward to this winter, it is not looking well. We could be looking at a whole year of heightened fire danger once again.
That's not the news we would hope for. I don't know how much drier it can get. We're frankly off the charts on fire behavior. No one's ever seen conditions like this.
Good encourages homeowners to remove dead, down, dry materials from around their property and to cut the grass. Melanie Woodrow, ABC 7 News.
I'd like to think that the. I don't know. I'd like to think that this wasn't started. Like, this is awful. Just seeing the fires is awful. And I feel for the animals that have made this a habitat. I feel for the regular folk like you and I. Celebrities, if all the celebrities collectively pulled all their resources, they could probably stop the fire if they wanted to. But, or even like help out the communities that's there. But we know how they are. It's not as simple as just giving them their net worth, because net worth is sort of like an overrated stat anyway. But that's a video for another day. But basically, net worth doesn't necessarily mean that they have the money, especially if you liquefy the assets. I find that when you actually have to liquefy assets, you get a lot less than what your net worth suggested. So I think we could learn something from the Australian wildfires that occurred last year, and then this is sort of like we'll just chat about everything after all these videos have been played.
All right, well, let's head down to the land down under. New studies suggest that the Australian brush fires may have contributed to the multi-year La Nina weather pattern. And although this pattern is fairly common to the area, it's extremely rare for it to occur on 3 consecutive winters. Climate scientist John Fasulo joins us right now. John, good to see you here this morning. So, when I think of La Nina, I don't generally think of wildfires. So can you explain the connection between La Nina and Australia?
Yeah, we weren't expecting it either. This is the first time that a study has shown this connection between wildfires and La Nina. We know that volcanic eruptions can drive La Nina events if they occur in the southern hemisphere. And well, that was kind of our suspicion going in, is that these large wildfires right before the COVID pandemic may have influenced this very unusual La Nina. As you mentioned, it was 3 years in a row. It was unusual, and it didn't follow an El Nino event, which is a warming of the tropical Pacific Ocean. Typically, La Nina events follow El Nino, and that did not occur this time. So we had a lot of questions going in.
No,
Yeah, that's what I learned. I didn't know La Nina could occur without El Nino. I thought El Nino could happen, and La Nina generally doesn't. La Nina is a lot less common than El Nino, at least from what I learned. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that La Nina.
I understand you use a specific model in order to figure this out.
That's right. So, from space, you can see the wildfire smoke go around the southern hemisphere. And you didn't need a computer model to understand that. We could see it directly. But to understand the climate response to that smoke, you need some sort of a climate model or weather model or something like that. You can't infer it directly from the smoke. And so what we did is we used NCAR's climate model to understand the effect of the smoke both on clouds in the southern hemisphere. And it turns out it had a big impact on clouds because the southern hemisphere is a very clean atmosphere. There aren't a lot of factories around, a lot of cars around. And so you introduce smoke, and all of a sudden you have all these little particulates that influence the formation of clouds. And as a result, the clouds became brighter, and they reflected more sunlight back to space, cooling the southern hemisphere, which was really unexpected.
That's very fascinating. Now, I'm just curious, do you think that because we're approaching more of an El Nino pattern that we're going to see the complete opposite?
Yeah, so in fact, one of the things that surprised us and really took us by surprise is how long the effect of these wildfires lasted. We expected the effect maybe to last a year or two. But as it turns out, we extended our simulations recently, and it looks like there may be a bounce back to an El Nino phase. And that's what we're seeing now, as you mentioned.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, very fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for weighing in, and I think it's been enlightening.
I think it was El Nino last year, right? It was El Nino last year, a couple of years ago. 3-year La Nina. I didn't know La Nina could even be that long. I remember learning, I was like, it could be a year or 2 or 3 years. That's long. And this is last year as well. So this is very relevant to what's happening right now in California. Oh, there's something I forgot to mention too. Like the water reserves in California have dried up as well. It's one of the reasons why they don't encourage having green lawns. And it's like, lawns in and of itself is a very touchy subject for me. But anyways, it's horrible. It's horrible what's been happening with what happens in California. My heart goes out to the regular folk who've lost everything. I have a friend whose house burnt down, and I don't think anyone really understands how devastating that is for people, because then you get displaced, you got to find a place to live, and it's temporary, and then you still got a job, you still have bills to pay for, and if your insurance is not helping you out, then you're kind of like really screwed. And my friend, their family never really did pursue charges because the neighbor said that they didn't have insurance, so people couldn't afford to take it to the cleaners, and it turns out 4 or 5 years they had insurance. And I don't think that my friend's family would have even I don't think that they would have pursued anything regardless, but I still think it's awful. There are no winners. I mean, fires can start. It was a dry fire that started with my friend, and just to know what they had to go through, it's devastating, man. This is climate change. This is When it comes to climate change, a lot of people think that it's, the world's just substantially getting warmer, but it's in the name. It's it is still global warming, but it's in the name. The climate is changing. More multi-year La Niñas, a lot of drier weather, a lot of more unstable weather as well, and it's not like that these things didn't happen, but with all the changes in climate, it's sort of like occurring more often. And I'm not saying it's a reason one way or another, but this is a clear indication, And I know these are new segments, and people are just like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I don't really feel like doing a lot of research because I just literally woke up. It's like 9 p.m. 10, and I just woke up. I'm not doing like substantial research. I'm just gonna go with what the news says. And I tried to pick a couple of different like leaning groups. So this Fox, and another one was ABC, and they all kind of put the same agreement. Like this is devastating, very very devastating, and it's gonna change how insurance works. It's gonna change how a lot of people like kind of conduct business. But I'm gonna go off with insurance companies at some point. I just don't know when, because the whole concept of insurance it just seems to me like one big Ponzi scheme. Like honestly, like Wall Street to me is like one big Ponzi scheme as well. And a lot of people are just like, you don't understand economics. It's like, yeah, I don't, because I want to understand how we can fuck over people, and make all the excuses. Oh, we don't have like the financial backing to for the insurance of these people, and then I'm just like, what I this is where that word comes in. Say, I thought your company was like $3 billion net worth. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's gonna get ridiculous. But this is climate change. This it's not that it's like 65 degrees hotter or whatever, or it's not that. It's this a change in weather patterns that can really affect people's livelihoods. This is the climate change that we studied when I was in school, and it's devastating. And I don't know if it's gonna get any more devastating. Who knows what 2026 will look like, but I think that even a lot of sports teams aren't even playing right now because of the wildfire. I think it'll be just really generally insensitive. But yeah, just don't forget, all those rich folk up over there, they got the money to help you guys out. They just don't want to. And then they're gonna virtual signal. That's what I hate a lot. It's like I don't mind. You get your bag. Get your bag. But just don't virtual signal. That's what annoys me. Anyways, that's everything I want to say. Thank you very much. Later days.